Hey guys, it's Robin May, and I am the founder of the I Believe in Marriage Network. And listen, I am super excited about this mini training, and that's exactly what it's going to be, a mini training. So tag your friends, share the video, and say this is must watch Facebook, okay? I want to make sure that we're helping as many people as possible on this topic. Our topic today is why our communication goes wrong and what you can do to make it right. Now, I'm intentionally talking about what you can do to make it right. Because here's the reality when it comes to communication, or when it comes to our marriages in general. I don't know about you, but it is super easy for me to think about all the things that my husband does that hinders things in our marriage. I mean, I could give you a complete PhD level paper on it. But then for some reason, when it comes to my stuff, I can figure out an excuse or I can minimize it. And so today we are talking about why our communication goes wrong and what you can do to make it right. Y'all, I have so many notes right here because again, this is a mini training. Now, before we go any further, I want you to go ahead and grab your freebie. The link is right there. It is ibelieveinmarriage.com/self-check. ibelieveinmarriage.com/self-check, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to check ourselves, okay? Now, couples often say when they come to me, and for those of you who are just getting to know me, I am a licensed professional counselor, but I'm also a certified life coach. So whether I'm working with couples through counseling or through coaching, one of the things I hear all the time is, Robin, we cannot communicate. My spouse and I cannot communicate. And what I've often found is that is not really the real issue. That's not really the real issue. And when I say that to couples, they're often surprised. But the challenge is that our communication challenges really are because of other issues. So let me ask you this. Have you and your spouse been in the midst of a conversation? Maybe y'all are just talking about something casual and you're trying to figure out somehow that casual conversation turned into something that you never intended for it to turn into. And you're wondering, how did that happen? It's because of our filter. So let me tell you what happens. You and your spouse can be talking about something that happened on TV. You can be talking about where you're going to eat for dinner. But if I'm already having an issue, if I'm feeling like you're not spending enough time with the family, and that issue is an undercurrent that's happening in my heart, and I'm already frustrated about that, well then pretty much anything you say and anything you do somehow is going to be connected to that issue. That becomes my filter. And when I have a filter or an issue that is already bubbling underneath the surface, it's going to impact our communication. Y'all, this is just a freebie. These are not even the exact steps I'm going to show you. This is just a freebie. So let me tell you again. Let's even take it off of you and your spouse for right now. I just want you to think about the last situation you had at work, or that issue you've tried to discuss with your child and you're like, they just don't get it. It's because we all have a filter. We all hear things through our filter. One of the ways I like to describe it is based on your generation, and actually even based on your culture, certain words mean certain things. So I can say, oh, she had on a bad dress to certain clients, and they'll get exactly what I mean. But then I can say it to another culture, and they'll say, what was wrong with her dress? What was wrong with it? It's because when they hear that word, they have a certain connotation. They don't get the connotation that I meant. Well, that's an example of our filter. We hear things through what we understand. And if I'm already having an issue with you, if I'm already having an undercurrent, a frustration, then when you say certain things or when you say anything, I hear it through that filter. So that's one of the reasons why I want you to go ahead and grab the freebie. Go to ibelieveinmarriage.com/self-check. ibelieveinmarriage.com/self-check. And I want you to grab the freebie because it is going to help you figure out how you contribute to challenges in your communication, okay? Have you clicked the link? Have you shared this page on your page? You got some assignments to do before we go any further. Again, click the link, get your freebie, and then come back here. And then share this video on your page. Tell your family and friends, listen, You need to look at this. This is going to help you in your marriage, okay? All right. So as I promised on Instagram, I posted on Instagram and I said, listen, I'm going to be sharing with you the reasons our communication goes wrong. And I want you all to tell me there are 5 main reasons our communication goes wrong. And I said, I want y'all to tell me out of these 5, and I listed all 5. I said, I want you to share with me which ones you think you want me to cover, okay? So you guys share with me out of those 5, which 2 you wanted me to cover. And so I'm going to cover those 2, all right? Thank you. Thank you guys for sharing the link. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share the 2 issues that hinder our communication, but I want to go ahead and give you all 5 of them, okay? So here are the 5 things. Here are the 5 areas that often challenge, stop our communication. Let me give you all 5. Are you ready? Number 1, when we defend our position. When you're in the midst of an argument, or you're in the midst of a deep discussion, or your spouse brings an issue to you, and instead of hearing the issue, you defend your position. That stops communication. Here's the second thing that stops communication. When we deflect our role in the conflict. So there's an issue going on and you deflect your role in the conflict. Either you place the blame on your spouse or you place the blame on someone else. You deflect your role in the conflict. So number 1, when we defend our position. Number 2, when we deflect our role. Here is the 3rd way our communication is hindered. When we dismiss our spouse's feelings. So your spouse shares with you something that they are feeling, and you dismiss it or you minimize it. And let me tell you something about that one. We also, or some people often dismiss or minimize their own feelings. So again, I'm sharing with you the 5 ways that hinder our communication. The 5 things we do that hinders our communication in our marriages. So number 1, when you defend your position. Number 2, when you deflect your role in the conflict. Number 3, when you dismiss your spouse's feelings. Number 4, when you disrespect your spouse. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give you this one. Listen, disrespect doesn't even have to always be what you say. Disrespect can happen just in your body language, but I'm going to keep going. Number 5 is when you shut down and you refuse to deal with the situation. So again, I share with you the 5 ways our communication is hindered in our marriage. I'm going to give them to you again. When we defend our position, when we deflect our role, when we dismiss our spouse's feelings, when we disrespect our spouse, and when we shut down and refuse to deal with the situation. Okay, let me take a deep breath. Breathe with me, guys, because... Am I a bit dramatic? Was that a bit dramatic? Okay, breathe with me, because on my Instagram, I told you guys I was going to put myself on blast one more time. So, honey, are you there? Let me know, honey, are you watching this Facebook Live? Because I'm going to go ahead and put myself on blast. I am going to ask my husband to share with all of you, out of those 5 areas I just identified, which of those 5, honey, would you say I have a habit of doing? Okay, so for those of you who may not know, my husband is Lee May, and I have asked him to join me on this Facebook Live as a participant. Here he goes. I want you to share with me, honey, out of those 5, I'm going to give them to you again. Are you ready? 1, do I defend my position? Do I deflect my role? Do I dismiss your feelings? Do I disrespect you? Oh, God, I hope you don't say that one. Or do I shut down and refuse to deal with the situation? All right, y'all. He said, drum roll, please. I'm waiting. Which one would you say that I do? And as we're waiting on him, y'all, here's the reality. I do this for a living. I help couples navigate through these things all the time. But we are human, and we all fall victim to these situations. All right, here we go. Honey, where are you? I'm waiting on you to tell me. I'm holding my breath. I just hope. It's just the one I don't want him to say, but I want him to tell the truth. So, honey, out of those 5, which one would you say? All right, he just told us it's a combination between defending and deflecting. Whew, that's hard. He says, out of those 5 that I just shared, the habit that I have is he says, I tend to defend my point of view, or I deflect my role in. He's getting real comfortable now, because now he's saying I defend or deflect, but most of the time I deflect. All right, guys, that's hard to hear. And it's hard to hear publicly. But I do that because I want you guys to realize we are all growing, and we all have to admit how we contribute to the chaos. And can I tell you what my tendency is and what human nature is? So when I hear my husband share with me the areas that he thinks that I do that challenges our communication, you know what I want to say? Well, what do you do? I want to say, what do you do? Like, how do you hinder the communication? But if I want my husband to feel free to share with me, I need to be open and create an environment for him to tell me the truth about me. Y'all, this is not easy. He just said, y'all, please pray for me. I promise you there's no retribution. I am going to keep a positive attitude, and I am not going to discuss this further. Okay, and so I don't have time to go over all 5. I don't have time to go deep into all 5. I wanted to give you all 5 ways that we challenge our communication. I only have time to go over 2, and then I'm going to share with you 3 things you can do differently. Wherever you fall on those 5, I'm going to share with you 2, and then I'm going to share with you 3 things you can do better. All right? If you have any questions as we're going, please let me know the questions, and I am going to try my best to answer. All right. So I told you there are 3 things. I only have time to go over 2. I asked you guys on social media which one you wanted me to go over. One of the main ones that people identified was the one about dismissing our spouse's feelings. They said, Robin, I want to hear about what does it mean to dismiss your spouse's feelings. So here's the deal. When we dismiss our spouse's feelings, or even when we dismiss our own feelings, that is a red flag. It immediately stops our ability to communicate with our spouse. Now, let me give you a part about this communication. When it comes to communicating with our spouse, and I told you couples often come in my office and they'll say, Robin, we're having so many issues communicating. And I tell them the issue isn't communication. The issue is your connection. The issue isn't your ability to exchange information. The issue is the connection. When there is an issue in our ability to communicate, that means somewhere we've lost a bit of a connection. Because if we are fully connected, then we'll be able to communicate in a healthy way. Are you with me on that? So that means there's something that has happened that has challenged our ability to connect. So let's go back to what my husband said. He says that when we're communicating, I defend my position. So when we're exchanging information and when we're talking and he's sharing with me a concern, he's saying, I begin to defend my position. Well, you can imagine if I'm defending my position, then that causes him to pull back. It causes him not to feel safe in sharing with me. So now our connection is impacted. Are you with me? And so when we talk about dismissing feelings, that looks like this. Let me give you an example of how that looks. Your spouse tells you, let's say your spouse comes to you and says that your mother was rude to her. She comes and says, listen, the other day your mom was really rude to me. And if your response is, you know what, you're too sensitive and you need to get over it. Your spouse says, listen, your mom was rude to me, and your response is, you're too sensitive, you need to get over it. That is a perfect example of you dismissing your spouse's feelings. Now listen, you may have heard what your mother said, and what you heard, in your opinion, wasn't rude. But if your spouse is telling you that what she heard made her feel hurt, or made her feel like your mom was being rude, when you dismiss that, you just cut off the ability to communicate. You just told your spouse, how you feel doesn't really matter to me. And the moment you dismiss your spouse's feeling, you stop effective communication right there. You never want to tell your spouse, or anyone else for that matter, that they are wrong for how they feel. If they are feeling something just because you don't agree with it, just because that's not your experience, it is the perfect way to stop effective communication as soon as you tell them, well, I don't know why you feel like that, or you're too sensitive, or you need to get over it, or you always feel like that. That's a perfect way to stop communication. So here's the question I often ask my couples when I see a conflict in their connection, and that conflict in their connection impacts their communication. I often ask them this: what is it that you really want? What is it that you ultimately want? Do you want your spouse to leave here? Do you want your spouse to engage in the world feeling as though her spouse or his spouse doesn't care about how they feel? Is that your goal? See, we have to think about what is our bigger goal. And if that's not your bigger goal, then you have to make sure that you're acknowledging, that you're paying attention, that you're sensitive to how your spouse feels. Now, you know I always do both sides, so let me point this out. We are only responsible for ourselves. You are responsible for how you engage in your marriage. So you got to be honest with yourself. Does everything hurt your feelings? Do you see everything as rude? Does your spouse have to walk on eggshells because everything throws you over the loop? Like if it's always everything and your spouse is feeling like, I'm having to dodge landmines all the time, well, that can get exhausting. So I'm talking to your spouse saying, listen, you don't want to dismiss your spouse's feelings. If your spouse is coming to you, sharing with you a concern, and you dismiss it, then you're shutting down effective communication. Well, then I have to say to you, listen, if your spouse is always feeling like they have to walk on eggshells, then that will get exhausting. Are you with me on that? You know, it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. Don't tell anybody, but I have 3 little girls, and I have an 8-year-old. Don't tell her I told you this. And my 8-year-old is super, super sensitive. And so we often find ourselves saying, what happened now? Reagan, are you sure? Because she's always in her feelings. So if that's you, you have to pay attention to that, okay? So we just talked about 5 areas in our relationship that stops our communication. I only have time to go over 2. The first one is dismissing your spouse's feelings. The moment you dismiss or minimize your spouse's feelings, you stop effective communication. So what can you do different? The next time your spouse shares a concern or they share their heart, I want you to remember that even if you don't feel the same way, even if you think they're being super sensitive, even if you think they shouldn't feel that, I want you to see yourself as your spouse's support system, not the person who judges how your spouse feels. Can I give that to you again? I want you to see yourself as your spouse's support system, not as the person who judges how they feel. Does your spouse feel safe to come and share with you? Listen, you don't have to agree with them to empathize with them. You don't have to agree with them to empathize with them. Okay, so remember I told you I was going to share with you 2 of the 5 ways that we stop effective communication. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you go right to IBelieveInMarriage.com/self-check and you'll get this handout. And it is an easy self-check. It's a 5-minute self-check cheat sheet. And listen, you just print this out or you just save it to your computer, you save it to your phone, and it asks you some questions just to check yourself for a minute, right? We need to check ourselves. So I want you to grab this. Go to IBelieveInMarriage.com/self-check. It's right here in the link. IBelieveInMarriage.com/self-check. And if you're listening to this recording later on, go to IBelieveInMarriage.com/self-check. So let me tell you, remember, share this on your page. Tell your friends this is must watch Facebook. This is must watch Facebook. Share it. Now, I'm going to share with you one more way. Now, for those of you just logging on, I shared the 5 ways our communication is hindered. When we defend, when we deflect, when we dismiss, when we disrespect, and when we shut down. I asked Instagram to share with me, out of those 5, which 2 do you want me to address? They asked me to address when we dismiss our spouse's feelings, and the other one was when we shut down. So I just talked about when we dismiss our spouse's feelings. Now I'm going to talk about what happens when we shut down, and then I'm going to tell you 3 things you can do to fix all of this. 3 easy things you can do. And I'm telling you, if you try at least one, it'll make a difference. All right. So Often what happens in communication, I have these good old notes here because this is a mini training. I want y'all to get this information. All right. So often when I see this often in counseling or coaching with clients, and quite honestly, for those of you just logging in, I earlier asked my husband to share with me out of the 5, which ones do I do? I just knew he was going to say shut down. I'm surprised. That's why it's important to answer the question, because I knew he was going to say that I shut down, but he didn't say that one. So if he's not on, baby, you on here anymore? Because I do not want to give him any ideas. All right. So I see it often in the midst of a heated conversation, or when the conversation is taking a turn in a way that the person doesn't necessarily like, or when there has been a shift in the feelings, one or more of the people in the relationship will just shut down. And what does that mean? It means we sometimes do one or two things. We'll pretend to give in to the argument just to stop it. We'll do things like, oh, okay, you're right, that's fine, it's okay. Am I playing one of y'all out perfectly? You know, you'll do, baby, whatever. All right, I hear you. Okay, it's cool. You shut down. You're making a point to shut down the conversation. Or if you don't even say anything, you'll just walk away. You'll turn your back. Your spouse will be talking to you and you'll just give a blank look. I got it down, don't I? You'll just give a blank look and you're not giving them anything. You're not saying anything else. You have shut down the conversation. And let me tell y'all why that is dangerous. If you guys are in a heated conversation, or you still have unfinished business and you have decided that the conversation is over, that is a sign of disrespecting your spouse. I can go ahead and add that one to the other one. You have decided, I don't care what you're feeling. I don't care what's happening inside of you. I'm ready to shut it down, so we're going to shut it down. Can you see how that stops effective communication? You are teaching your spouse that their feelings, their input doesn't matter. You're going to shut it down because you've decided enough is enough. Think about that. Sometimes we do things and we don't understand why we do them or the impact that they have. So even if it's a passive aggressive way of shutting down, again, you pretend to agree or you just give the look. That's why I give the look so good. I can't believe he didn't say that, because I do this. I give the look. And so that is an example of shutting down the conversation. Now, let me pause and say this. There are times when it is wise to stop talking about a situation. You can tell when it's taking a really unhealthy turn. You can tell when you guys are getting ready to say something or do something that is not going to be healthy for the marriage. But if you are going to stop the conversation, you want to do it respectfully, and you want to do it in a way that keeps conversation open in the future. So one of the strategies I suggest is that whomever is in that place and you know you're getting ready to say something, or you're getting ready to do something, or the conversation is taking a turn that you think is unhealthy, I want you to be the mature one to say, hey, listen. And you may not do it this calm, because I'm not in the midst of an argument right now. Let me see if I can put on my acting skills and show y'all what we really do. So I might say something like, listen. This is going too far. I'm about to go off. I'm about to say something that I don't want to say. I'm about to do. So we need to stop this conversation and let's pick it up in an hour. Give me a minute. Let me just breathe. Can we stop the conversation and pick it up in an hour? Or can we stop the conversation and come back to this tomorrow at this time? Now, do you notice I'm giving a specific time? Because listen, if my husband is feeling heated and I just shut it down and I don't say when we're going to pick it back up, I'm dishonoring him. And so if you know that it's time to shut the conversation down, because sometimes our words can start getting reckless, shut it down, but redirect. Take ownership. Hey, I feel like I'm about to say something that's not going to be good, and I love you, and I don't want this to go somewhere that it doesn't need to go. So can we stop now and pick it up in an hour? Can we stop now and pick it up in tomorrow at this time? So that's what I want you to try to do, okay? I want you to learn that there may be a time that you need to redirect it, but you don't want to do it disrespectfully. Again, when we shut down the conversation, when we shut down communication in that way, we're stopping the ability for us to connect. Remember, I said at the top of this conversation, challenges in communication really can be pointed to challenges in our connection. when we aren't connected, when there are challenges in our connection, and I don't have time to start going through all the things that challenge our connection, but when our communication is challenged, it's really a connection issue. Let me tell you how I know. Okay, so have you ever wondered, let's say you have a husband that doesn't communicate effectively with you, but you hear him communicating really good with his friends, or he communicates just fine with his sister, or he communicates really well with his coworkers. Or maybe, ladies, you say, for some reason, I can have a very open conversation with my mother, but I can't have an open conversation with my husband. Or my best friend and I have no problem communicating, but my husband and I have a problem communicating. That means that there's really a connection issue. You know how to communicate, but you're having a connection issue with your spouse. And often our connection is hindered by one of these 5 things that I went over earlier, or that I at least identified earlier. So, again, just to recap, we are talking about what has hindered our communication. And there are 5 things that hinder our communication. I shared them with you. Number 1, when we deflect. Number 1 is when we defend. Number 2, when we deflect. Number 3, when we dismiss. Number 4, when we disrespect. Number 5, when we shut down. I went over 2 in detail. What happens when we dismiss our spouse's feelings, and then what happens when we shut down our communication. So now I want to share with you, what can you do about it? What can you do to help this situation? Now, before I do that, remember, I want you to grab your cheat sheet. Just go to IBelieveInMarriage.com/self-check. You got to do a self-check. You can't keep expecting your spouse to do it. You have to do a self-check. So I want you to go to IBelieveInMarriage.com and grab this cheat sheet. I want you to get your hands on it. You can print it. You can download it and save it to your computer, or you can save it to your phone. All right? All right, y'all. Let's keep it moving. I don't want to leave you there. I do not want to leave you with what goes wrong. There are 7 things that I teach my clients about how to make it right. But I would be on this Facebook Live for an hour, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to share with you really quick 3 things you can do. I reviewed all 7, and I said, which of these 7, I want to pick 3 that I think if you apply right now, if I can challenge you to begin applying one of these 3 that I'm about to share with you, I'm telling you, you're going to see an improvement, okay? I'm telling you, you are going to see an improvement. And let me tell you what I want you to do. I want you to write down these 3 things I'm about to share with you. I want you to try it for 2 weeks. I want you to try to implement these 3 things for 2 weeks. And then I want you to email me. The email is contact@IBelieveInMarriage.com. Contact@IBelieveInMarriage.com. If you go ahead and sign up for this cheat sheet, you'll go ahead and have the email. And I want you to email me and tell me how it worked. Because I believe if you try it for 2 weeks, I believe it's going to work. Okay, so I'm excited. Let me give them to you. So again, I looked over all 7 of the things that I always teach, and I said, which of these is going to help? The second one I share, I promise you it made a huge change in my marriage. Like, quite frankly, my husband and I had an argument. I was going to say an intense fellowship earlier today, but we had a full argument, and I used one of these strategies, and it really helped, okay? So here is number 1. I'm sharing with you 3 things you can do to improve your communication. Before I do that, go ahead and share this on your page. Tell somebody. She's about to tell us how to fix it. Say, Robin is about to tell us how to fix the communication in our marriage, and you do not want to miss it, okay? Go ahead and share it. All right. Here is the first thing you can do. And this is going to seem a little bit stereotypical, but ladies, I think this is the one we really have to work on. I mean, this is going to sound stereotypical, but ladies, I think we have to work on this. Number 1, we have to stop assuming. If you want to improve the communication in your marriage, you have got to stop assuming. I don't know if you are like me, but I tell my husband all the time, honey, I know you better than you know yourself. I can tell the way he moves his leg if something is bothering him. I can tell the way he holds his eye when he's irritated. I can tell the inflection in his voice when he's frustrated. I know that man. But because I know him so well, I can be guilty of making assumptions about what he's thinking, what he's feeling, about his perspective, about how he wants to handle a situation, I can be guilty of making an assumption. And I get really frustrated when people just assume they know what I'm thinking. I have heard myself say before, listen, don't assume you know, ask me. And so if you want to improve the communication in your marriage, the first step you have to do is you have to stop assuming. You have to clean out your filter. You have to give your spouse a clean slate. Give them an opportunity. Listen, you are an adult. Your spouse is an adult. And you want to give them the respect to say, listen, I want to hear what you're saying. I don't want to make an assumption about what you're thinking. I don't want to make an assumption about how you're feeling. I want to really hear you. Now, let me tell you what happens with this. I'm going to go ahead and prepare you because I've asked you to take me up on this challenge. I want you to do all 3 of these for the next 2 weeks, and I want you to email me and tell me how it works. And so I want to prepare you for what can go wrong, okay? Let me help you. What is going to happen the first couple of times is you're going to say, all right, I'm going to try to do what Robin said. I'm going to try to stop assuming, but I think I know what he's going to say. Or I think I know what she's going to say. Listen, and they're going to say or do the very thing you thought. And you're going to say, see, I don't know what Robin is talking about. But I'm telling you, I want you to keep practicing it because it's just a sign of respect. It's just a sign of respect that you are hearing them for what they are saying. And you can even say that to them. One of the scripts I would use is this. Honey, listen, I often already think I know what you're going to say or what you're going to do, but I don't want to make that assumption. What are you feeling about this? That just shows a sign of respect, all right? So number 1, I want you to stop assuming, all right? All right, here's number 2. This is the one that I told you that I implemented today. It's one that I have implemented for the last, I would say, 4 years of my marriage, and it has made a world of difference. If you want to improve the communication in your marriage, you have to seek clarification. You have to seek clarification. When your spouse shares something with you that you don't agree with, instead of defending your position, instead of dismissing their feelings, instead of being disrespectful, I might as well go through all of them, instead of shutting down, instead of deflecting your position, I want you to seek clarification. I want you to pause and seek clarification. Now, here are the words that I use. I'm going to give you the words exactly. Instead of saying something like, what are you talking about? That don't even make sense. Instead of saying something like that, try this. Okay, I think I'm missing something because I just don't understand. Can you help me to see it the way you see it? I just gave y'all my good stuff. I'm telling you, use these words, and you have to be sincere because listen, I don't believe in playing games. Because your marriage is not a game. You have to be sincere. Hey, honey, I'm missing something. Can you help me to see it the way you see it? Can you imagine how good? You're literally telling your spouse, listen, my filter, this is really what I tell my husband all the time because he and I have been together 24 years. And so we know each other. And I'll tell him, listen, honey, the way my mind is, I'm all the way over here and you could be all the way over here. Can you help me to see it the way you're seeing it? Can you help me get your perspective on this? Baby, I'm not getting it. Can you help me to see it the way you're seeing it? I just did that today in the midst of our intense argument. Baby, I'm not getting it. Can you help me to see it the way you see it? And that took the conversation in a totally different direction. And quite frankly, I know that it works. I know that it works. But sometimes I'm not mature enough in the moment to do it. I'm encouraging you to do it. You will help your spouse feel respected, feel honored, feel valued simply by saying, baby, can you help me to see it the way you see it? I'm missing something. Now, hear me say this. Let me clarify for a minute. I gave you that script. But listen, you got to have a PhD in your man. You have to have a PhD in your woman. You have to know how to take what I just said and present it to them the way they will receive it. Because I can already hear some of you saying, Robin, no ma'am. If I say that to my husband, he's going to say this. Or if I say this to my wife, she's going to say that. Get the principle. Get the heart of it. Massage it. And then present it in the way that your spouse will hear it. Okay? All right, here's the third thing you can do. Okay, so I've shared with you 2 of the things you can do to improve your communication. Number 1, stop assuming. Number 2, seek clarification. Here's the third one. If you want to improve the communication in your marriage, try it. I am challenging you. I want you to try it consistently. Now listen, I gave y'all that challenge. You can't try it for one time and come back and say, Robin, it didn't work. I want you to try it consistently for 2 weeks, intentionally and consistently. So I told you that. Number 1, stop assuming. Number 2, seek clarification. Here's number 3. I want you to find common ground. Many times, our tough conversations are rooted in some type of disagreement. When we're having a disagreement, it's often rooted in a tough situation. And so the goal is for us to get on the same page. So at the top of the conversation or somewhere in the middle, I want one of you to be mature enough to stop and say, hey, what can we agree on? You have to find common ground. What can we agree on? I know that we're having a hard time right now. I know this is really a tough conversation. I know that we are in the midst of a big disagreement, but there's got to be something that we do agree on. So can we start where we agree and work from there? So I want you and your spouse to find common ground. Let me think of a simple, so here's an idea. Let's say maybe you guys are having an argument about, let me think of an issue. Maybe you guys are having an argument about whether or not where your next vacation should be, and maybe it has taken a turn. It's gone left, and you're like, we were talking about our vacation. How did it go so left? What happened that made us have this much of a disconnect? Come back and say, all right, baby, listen, I don't know where that went wrong. What can we agree on? Can we agree that we definitely want to do a vacation, or okay, what can we agree on? Do we know we both want to be somewhere hot? Or maybe it's who's going to come on the vacation with you. Can we agree with who we want to be on the vacation? Whatever the issue is, find common ground. I'm telling you, if you can find common ground and start from there, it just puts you, the two of you, on the same page. You're starting on the same page and you're working from there instead of working from 2 different ends of the room. Often in my own marriage, my husband and I have noticed when we're in the midst of a tough situation in our lives, he goes into his corner to deal with it. I go into my corner to deal with it, and we don't come back to the center of the room. And so we've had to practice coming back to the center of the room. And how do we do that? We do that by finding common ground. What is it that we can agree on? All right? So, y'all, I hope all of this has helped you. I want to recap. I started with sharing with you 5 areas that challenge our communication. I told you when we defend our position, when we deflect our role in the conflict, when we dismiss our spouse's feelings, when we disrespect our spouse, and when we shut down and refuse to deal with the situation. I even asked my husband to chime in and let me know out of those 5, which 2 that I do. Y'all, I was super nervous because I did not want him to say that I was disrespectful. That would have broken my heart. I would have listened, but it would have broken my heart. But he shared and he said, I tend to defend my position, or I deflect my role in the conflict. I hope I modeled for you how to handle that, because it would be very easy. And of course, I wouldn't do it on Facebook Live. I'm smart enough not to do that. But it would be very easy for me to say, well, what about you? What do you do? That's not what you want to do. You want to listen, allow it to be a safe place for your spouse to share. Before I started this Facebook Live, I asked my Instagram friends what areas out of those 5, which 2 did they want me to cover. They chose when we dismiss our spouse's feelings and when we shut down and refuse to deal with the situation. So I went over those 2. Then I gave you 3 things you can do to improve your communication. Number 1, stop assuming. Number 2, seek clarification. And number 3, find common ground. I started this Facebook Live with sharing with you that it's super important that you clean your own filter. What happens in communication is when I hear you, I take it through my filter, and by the time it gets to me, I hear something totally different than what you said. And so in order to deal with that, I have to clean my filter. And how do you clean your filter? By doing a self-check. So I want you to go to IBelieveInMarriage.com/self-check. IBelieveInMarriage.com/self-check. It'll go in your email right away, and you'll get this 5-minute self-check. You can save this to your computer, to your phone. You can print it out. Before you have a conversation, you can go over this to make sure that you guys don't go down a rabbit trail, okay? So again, I hope this helped you. Make sure you continue to comment. I continue to monitor the comments, and I'll answer any questions that you have. Share this on your page. If this blessed you, if this helped you, if you think this is going to impact your marriage, share this on your page and tell your family and friends to check it out. I do a Facebook Live once a week, so make sure you stay tuned to this I Believe in Marriage page or our Instagram, which is I Believe _in marriage. Thank you guys. I'll talk to you soon.